Boston Celtics heading out on the road. Will they be telling Derrick White to bulk up in the offseason? Why he probably should. Plus, playoff scenarios are still nowhere close to being figured out, but we're going to try anyway. And the big stat, my one big stat that makes Marcus Smart's case for him in Defensive Player of the Year, all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. It's a Monday through Friday podcast. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. You just have to listen to me talk to you about things I think you should buy. So subscribe, watch the show on YouTube. Would love to have you watching the show on YouTube. Thank you. We're up to 4,800. We've officially crossed 4,800 subscribers. So the goal of 5,000 by the playoffs still lives. It's going to be tough. The last 200 are going to be tough. And then I'm going to ask you for more because I'll set a new goal. But 5,000 by the playoffs, still doable. So would love to get to that number. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Boston Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. I was one of the media voters for the 75th anniversary team. And this show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Check out PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code NBA or go to your app store. Download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Celtics had a practice in which Ime Udoka, Derrick White, and Aaron Nesmith all spoke, and they all said basically nothing. So we're going to talk a little bit about the games, a little bit more about the games over the weekend, playoff scenarios, which nothing is determined, and some Marcus Smart talk for Defensive Player of the Year. He's making the rounds talking about Defensive Player of the Year. We're going to do it all with our good friend, our buddy, our pal, Mr. Tom Westerholm. Tom _NBA. How _ are you doing?
I'm good, man. I really thought you were going to lead into all of this with Celtics said nothing. So we're going to talk about that and bring in Tom Westerholm. I'm glad you didn't do that. But Tom,
the Celtics said nothing. Please expound for 28 minutes.
Well, Aaron Nesmith talked, and I don't think he's going to play in the playoffs. So
yeah, can I just say I feel bad. Like I had a question for Aaron Nesmith. I was joining via Zoom on this one, and I just put my hand down because I'm like, every Aaron Nesmith media availability is so you hit a couple of shots there. How does it feel to finally hit some shots? Or you're not hitting any shots. Why aren't you hitting any shots? What's the coaching staff say to get you through this? It's all the same questions because there's nothing more to ask him about his time. But he had good garbage time minutes, so the Celtics threw him in front of us.
Yeah, it always reminds me of when Shemi Ojeleye would play against Giannis, and everybody would go ask him the same, hey, how's it feel to be guarding Giannis? And Shemi would be like, because Shemi is one of the most genuinely kind people in the NBA, would come up with a similar way to say the same thing of, he's a challenge. You got to try real hard and be built like me.
Yeah. No one person stops him. It's a team.
No one person stops him. That's right.
Yep. So we got that. I will say that it was interesting that Derrick White came on and Ime did say, like, the most interesting thing that he said, this is actually from before the game, was, we are encouraging Derrick White to be more physical. Like, we're not afraid. Go take a foul. Go get up into people's airspace, take a foul. And I think the entire concept of being that physical. He even said this, I would say maybe a week ago, of we subscribe. He literally said, we subscribe to the mindset of they can't call all the fouls. So go be physical. And no coach ever says that. But he basically said, challenging NBA officials, you can't call them all, so good luck with that. And I think that's going to bode well for them going into the playoffs. Like if they can get Derrick White to bump up his physicality, and they're really like the playoffs become more physical anyway. So if the Celtics are already physical and other teams have to raise their game to that, and the Celtics go, hey, we're already here, so we're going to go here. Like there's like a gritty kind of, I think something Boston fans will is like a little gritty defensive, like we're going to knock your teeth out in this one.
Yeah. Marcus Smart is just taking like punching people in the gut when the refs aren't looking. It's going to be good stuff. I do think it's interesting to think about Derrick White being a little bit more physical because you do kind of see what they're talking about, right? Like he's not, it's funny because he is physical in some ways. He takes a lot of charges and he gives his body up like all the time. But what you don't see him is necessarily doing kind of, knocking people off their line and stuff like that. Like, kind of doing some of that like maneuvering thing that a lot of the other Celtics do. So it is, Derrick White is tall. He's he could be like, he's got great size for a guard. Like there is very little sort of separating him from, physically from where somebody like Marcus Smart is. So what does it kind of come down to? I think it comes down to like, Marcus Smart is willing to kind of put his hand where other guys aren't, kind of like give, that made it sound kind of weird, but he's willing to like put his hand.
Put his hand where, Tom?
I did kind of pull up short there for a reason.
You were going down the road and you were like, wait a second.
One of the first things
phrasing is getting me in trouble here.
One of the first things I got taught in journalism school, not because of my fault, but like one of the first things I got taught was like, hey, have it in mind that your readers are going to be thinking of ways to make you sound like you're saying something that you're not trying to say. Anyway, I assume the same thing is true of podcasting in school whenever that comes around.
I just put together a teaser video where I take things out of context to like promote the show. I will gladly edit in Marcus Smart is willing to put his hand where other people don't want to. If you're willing to say that, like I guess I just said that. I'll just put that in there. So I'll just take it for you.
There you go. But what I mean, of course, is Smart is willing to like kind of like put himself in harm's way, and kind of like, like try to, get steals, whatever it might be. Things that like when I watch him, I'm like, that looks like that would really hurt. And, Derrick White, like really, really good defender. And you can 100% see the potential for him to get even better if he kind of ramps things up. So, I kind of see what Ime was talking about it. I thought it was, Derrick said basically, they're always on me about doing things a little bit different. I think I'm getting more used to it as I go on. But I think Ime has a point. That would be and I think you have a point. I think that would be a very fun thing to watch in the postseason.
Yeah, I wonder because I'm assuming that Derrick's here long term. We don't know what the summer's going to bring. Like the summer could really go a couple of different ways, and there'll be plenty of time to podcast about all of the different iterations that the Celtics could have. So he could stay, he could go, whatever. But assuming that he's going to stay, it'd be interesting to see if they say, hey, you know what? Why don't you go tack on about 10, 15 pounds of muscle? Yes. Why don't we get Muscle Watch on you and just see if he comes back a little swole and then starts like, being physical. I think that'll be an interesting type of thing because it's certainly not going to ruin his shot.
No.
So it's right. So it would be a very interesting thing. We've just spent seriously. The Celtics have said nothing. We just spent a fair amount of time talking about all of that nothing.
I even had another point. I was going to say, and my impression from talking to people is that the Celtics do intend to keep Derrick White, that he is part of their long-term. So, we almost up to 8 minutes now on this. It's good.
That's it, man. We've been going for 8 minutes on a day where there's no games, no game Monday.
We went longer than the Derrick White questions went.
We did. The Derrick and Aaron, the Aaron availability lasted like 2.5 minutes because people were like, you guys gave us somebody who scored 10 points in garbage.
You want to talk about being a farmer again? Like, should we talk about that?
Yeah. But the Monday night is national championship. We're recording this well before any of this stuff. We've got stuff to do at night. We're recording this prior to that so we can go and engage in our actual daily lives and watch the national championship game unencumbered by professional responsibility, perhaps enjoying a beverage or three along the way. Tom, I know I'm going to be watching because I just love to watch basketball.
Yeah, that's why
Tom's going to watch because he'll also.
I'm going to be on a shift. Basketball. I'm not going to be drinking, but yes, I will be watching.
Oh yeah. Tom's working. I kind of make my own hours, so I've already written a piece for today. I'm doing my podcast. Like, get me one of those low calorie Michelob Ultras. Right. So Tom, you had college basketball takes.
Oh yes, I have two based on the Final Four. I actually don't have much of a take on Kansas, but my not very bold, but it's kind of bold take is that everybody gave up on Paolo way too soon. Paolo Banchero, the Duke super stud forward. I think he is so good, and I haven't written that much about prospects this year, so I've mostly kind of kept. I haven't watched as much college basketball as I usually do this specific season. I'm going to be back into it next year, but this year the Paolo, everybody gave up on him way too soon. He's so good, and he's going to be so good in an NBA system. I can't wait to watch what NBA skill and development guys do with his shot. I think it's perfectly workable. He's so physically gifted. He can just do a lot of different things. I think he is a star waiting to happen. I really think that I would give some real consideration to him being the number one pick. I know. I love Jabari Smith as the next guy. Chet Holmgren looks like a really intriguing guy, but I love Paolo. So that's my number one take. And then my number two take, which is much more relevant to tonight's game, is that I think people are kind of sleeping on Leaky Black. He plays for UNC. He just has everything that you want in an NBA defender. He's super versatile. He's a wing. He's got long arms. He's very athletic. He moves very well. I love Leaky Black. I think he's an NBA player, and I think there's not. I just think he's one of those guys that maybe goes in the second round, maybe gets on a summer league team and earns his spot. But I think he's got a real chance to be an NBA player just based on the fact that everybody's looking for wings who can defend, and he can really defend a bunch of different positions. So give me Leaky Black.
Plus,
his name is Leaky Black.
I was going to say, plus already he comes in with an all-time name.
Exactly.
That's a great. That's just a great name.
Yes,
that's a great name. That's a rap name. You're born with a rap name. That's awesome.
It's really incredible. I mean, look, it is shooting, stats aren't particularly good or anything. Although he's been a little bit better this year, 34% from three. But he's always been a good free throw shooter, 87%. Again, not really an offensive player, but 6'8", super good defender, super versatile. I believe in Leaky Black.
All right. Well, hey, look, Celtics still have a second round pick, right?
Yes.
So there you go. There's potential there. Yeah. If it was Danny Ainge, a long defender with no jump shot would be right in his wheelhouse.
100%.
So unfortunately, maybe he'll go to Utah. We'll see. We'll see if Danny Ainge keeps that. If Danny Ainge gets him in,
something has to fix that Utah defense. Something has to,
right? And we can fix his jumper. I'm sure Danny's gonna be like, yes, there's your second round sleeper. Yeah, bet. You know what? Let's book that as can I put money down on that? I'm gonna go to BetOnline and put some money down if I can find those odds. It's probably the only thing you can't find on BetOnline right now, because BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Obviously, you can go in there right now actually, by the time you listen to this, the game will be over. So no more college basketball, but I can go on while I'm recording this and decide whether I want to put some money on Kansas or UNC. I'm probably picking Kansas. So BetOnline, check them out for all your wagering information, live betting, esports, your favorite Vegas casino games. They are all right there. You can head on over to their website. You can do it on your mobile device. Learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline is where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. If you're into daily fantasy, you need PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. It's a lot of fun to go in there and pick over-unders. And again, there's no NBA basketball on Monday night, but Tuesday there's a ton of it. And you can go and have your run of all of the NBA games and decide, do you want to pick somebody's points or rebounds or assists? Pick the over-unders. You pick 2 to 5 players on their projections, and you win up to 10 times on any entry. Here's the best part, though. It's you against the projected numbers, which is not how all daily fantasy works. A lot of times it's you against other people who have technological advantages. That's not worth it. Do PrizePicks. You against the numbers. You can make your picks in 60 seconds or less. It's safe, and they offer fast withdrawals. You can use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. You can also cross into other sports. If you want to cross into baseball and get somebody's, home runs or something, you can do that. You can When NFL is back, you can pick your quarterback, and Tom Brady's back. You want to pick touchdowns in the game? Do that. For a limited time, PrizePicks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our users. You get $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point, but you got to use the promo code NBA. It's an exclusive offer for all of Locked On fans. Sign up today. Use the code NBA. $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Why not make Locked On NBA your second listen every day? I host it on Wednesdays with Jake Madison. We have the big Marathon Tuesday return to action after the national championship game. We will break down all of the playoff scenarios that are impacted by those wins and losses. Locked On NBA is all week, 5 days a week. It's free. Wherever you got this podcast, you can get that podcast. Rotating hosts, so you get a bunch of different perspectives on the league. It's worth checking it out. It's also on YouTube. Search Locked On NBA on YouTube. Let's get Tom Westerholm back into this mix and talk a little bit about the upcoming playoff scenarios, which are vast and completely up for grabs. There is absolutely no real clarity going into this last week. We did this once before, and the Celtics, we were like, yeah, they could probably finish fourth. I thought they'd finish fourth. Now they're in the second seed, and still so much depends on what other teams are going to do. I don't even know what I want anymore, because you can go for the fourth seed and then you end up having to play the Toronto Raptors. I kind of don't want to play the Raptors in the first round, because even though you're probably going to win, they're just going to annoy the hell out of you. And I just don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with all of their length. I don't want to deal with all of their crazy defenses. That's just an annoying slog. And so I don't know, Tom, but do you have any particular path that you think this is better than the other one at this point?
I still am kind of on team. Just try to be playing like, I don't know. I sound like a coach.
Best.
Just try to be playing the best basketball you can be when the playoffs roll around. And like, some of that is going to be keep your guys healthy, right? Like some of that is going to be just like, the best basketball the Celtics can play is basketball with all of their best players, right? So at some point, yeah, I mean, if any guy is having any, like I don't think it benefits them to have guys playing through knee soreness. I don't think it benefits them to, have guys playing in the fourth quarter of a game that you're winning by 30 points. Like I think, the biggest thing I think the Celtics can do is try to just, win games in front of them, but play well and keep everybody healthy and like let the chips fall where they may. The positioning, it's going to be what it is. It's so close. You just mentioned, that you don't want to play the Raptors. You don't want to end up in the 4 seed and play the Raptors in the first round. They have the exact same record as the Bulls. They are both 45 and 33. That could go either direction. The Cavaliers are in a little bit of a free fall. They've lost, like I think it's like 6 out of their last 10. I don't know where they end up. They're only a game and a half up on the Hawks. So like you just don't know who you're going to face. I think the big thing, you don't really want to face the Nets. I feel like they're playing pretty well right now. I know we talked about that last time of like, the Celtics shouldn't be afraid of playing the Nets, and they shouldn't be. But I also think that maybe like if you were choosing your team, I don't think you would choose the Nets necessarily.
Right.
So, I mean, look, right now they're in second. That seems like a pretty good spot to end up. You get the Cavaliers the first round. Obviously you'd rather not face the Bucks until you absolutely have to. But at the same time, again, I just don't think you should be trying to avoid anybody. I think if you're the Celtics, try to get, try to beat the first round team as well as you can. Hope Robert Williams comes back for the second round and go from there. They still, per Tankathon, they still have the toughest schedule remaining. I'm not sure that's going to remain the case. Like, I don't know that the Bulls, they're not playing particularly well over the last little stretch here. The Grizzlies are going to have very little to play for when the Celtics play them. So really they have like one major game left, and that's the Bucks. But other than that, I just think try to play well, try to stay healthy, let things kind of work out the way they work out. Because if you don't stay healthy or if you're not playing well, you're not going to have a long playoff run anyway.
That's the whole thing. And I think it just boils down to, at this point, stay healthy, get home court, deal with it. If you're going to play Milwaukee, just play them at home. and that's it. I literally, as we're talking, my piece on Boston Sports Journal went up. So it's trying to make sense of the playoff scenarios heading into the final week of the season, and basically my takeaway is that nothing is settled and nothing can be until like each day starting on Tuesday there will be a potential like momentum shift. It probably comes down to Milwaukee and Boston on Thursday. Celtics hold the tiebreaker over Miami, but I'm not really worried about the top seed. It's probably not going to happen. Celtics hold the tiebreaker against Philadelphia. If they are tied, they'll both be on top of the division. So it goes down to division record, and the Celtics are 9-7, Sixers are 6-9. So the Celtics have the tiebreaker against Philly. Milwaukee, if the Celtics win, they'll be head-to-head 3-1. They'll hold the tiebreaker. If Milwaukee wins, it'll be 2-2, and then it goes down to division winner. And the Bucks will win because they lead the Central Division. Now, if it goes beyond that, if the Celtics are tied with Philly and the if the Celtics win the division and Milwaukee wins the division, then it goes to conference record. And Boston is 32-18 and Milwaukee is 30-18. So Milwaukee still has an opportunity to get that tiebreaker as well. If they beat the Celtics, that's obviously a conference win. And Milwaukee still has Chicago, Detroit, and Cleveland, so they can rack up some wins in the conference. And the Celtics have Chicago and Milwaukee. So there's still tiebreakers to be sorted out. So again, there's like you can't when everything's like this, you just can't manipulate anything. You can't maneuver anything. You just there's no use in trying to say, well, we want to be third, we want to be fourth.
Right.
The best path is the fourth. Fine, you can say that the best path is this, but you can't do it. There's too many pieces up in the air. You can't sit there and be like, okay, I want this when all these other pieces need to fall. You don't even know who your opponent's going to be.
Well, and not for nothing, one of the things the Celtics have been, the Celtics have been playing great. And obviously they seem to have figured some stuff out. But the other thing that they've got going for them over this last couple of months is just the vibes, right? They are just the good vibes team. If you start setting expectations for yourself, if you're like, let's really try to avoid the Nets, let's really try to avoid, let's try to get the Sixers in the second round rather than having to play the Bucks or whatever it might be. At that point, if you miss those goals, it's like a minor little ding in your armor, right? It's like that little shoot, I was really hoping that we weren't going to have to face the Nets, or after we knock off the Cavaliers, I was really hoping we were going to face the Sixers instead of the Bucks. And it just kind of puts that little bit of bad vibe in there. The Celtics team is just so they're so bizarre. I don't know. I can't figure out what it is that would knock them off course, but I don't know. I don't know that I would want to mess around with those type of things. I think it just kind of comes down to hey, they're kicking ass. Let them keep kicking ass, and then just kind of let them keep believing that whoever they play, they're going to kick their ass.
I like that take because it's a very proactive kind of take. Look, we're not worried about who we play. Okay, is Brooklyn going to be tougher than Cleveland? Yeah, but if you believe in yourself, if I'm a member of the Celtics, I'm okay, yeah, I can see what you're saying about playing this team or that team or that team, but we also know that if we're playing at our absolute best, so what? Yeah. That's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to beat Durant and Kyrie, but we believe that we can.
Yes.
And there's definitely, and especially Seth Curry is still dealing with an ankle issue, and that's a big deal because that's a knockdown shooter that you have to account for. And if he can't play or if he's limited at all, then that might even impact their ability to get out of the play-in. So,
yeah, right. Maybe they're playing.
Well. I mean, but look, it's you have the potential to go up against the Atlanta Hawks, and Atlanta's playing great. They're the hottest team in the East right now. They've won 5 straight, 7 of 10.
Yep.
And you got Trae Young, and there's certainly a lot of slander to be thrown around the Hawks' way. I think they were too young and brash, and they blew off the regular season before a team should be like prepared to blow off the regular season. But
Right.
here they are. They're above 500. They've made their run. They've got a positive point differential. They're rolling a little bit. And if the Hawks are rolling, they're tough to stop. And Brooklyn has a hard time stopping teams. So if Brooklyn goes up to 7-8 and you have to play the Hawks, Brooklyn would be favored because I don't think the Hawks would be able to stop the Nets either. It'd be like 150 to 148, but not impossible for the Hawks to be that team with 150 points. So, and then Brooklyn would have another chance at it. And then so Brooklyn would go up against the top seed Miami Heat, and that would be a hell of a series. I think Miami is like they are slipped. I go back and forth. I think Kyle Lowry has been kind of like taking the regular season off. I said to some people at the game the other night, I think Kyle Lowry has the potential to drop a triple-double in game 1 of the playoffs, and people go, oh, crap.
Yeah,
oh,
I could see that.
You know, like,
yeah, 100%.
You know, like, and it could be like a 12-point, 10 assist, 10 rebound triple-double, but it's still, he's taking shots and he's impacting. I think he just cruised through the regular season. I think he passed a lot to get a lot of people on the team, their shots, and feeling good about themselves. And now when the playoffs come around, he's gonna be like, I'm still Kyle MF and Lowry, and watch this. And all of a sudden, Miami's got a good offense to go with their good defense, and it's like, oh, this is not going to be easy. So, and they're still the number 1 seed with him doing that. So, I don't. There is no great path. There is no simple path. I think the bottom line here, Tom, is it's the playoffs, and it's going to be hard. No matter who you play, no matter what, it's going to be hard. Deal with it, and to your point, if you're healthy, you'll get through it.
Yep. And I do 2 things about that I think are kind of funny. One, it's kind of crazy how the narrative around Kyle Lowry has shifted pretty much entirely based on the fact that like he broke through, right? Like, I mean that Raptors team was like, oh my gosh, they just fall apart in the playoffs. Like nobody could ever. And now it's like Kyle Lowry's been waiting around to show off to remind everyone that he's Kyle Lowry. I also the other thing that I wanted to say real quick was that DeAndre Hunter has done such a good job on Tatum this season that I was like, in the few, like the Celtics really have to work to get him off of Tatum. And when they do, like Tatum goes nuts against the Hawks because they have nobody else who can do anything about him. But I was curious how he'd done against Kevin Durant. And the answer is Durant has had 55, 31, and 32 against the Hawks. So Kevin
not well.
Kevin Durant is just a different type of dude, man.
Built different.
He is built different.
Built different. Let's talk about Marcus Smart's case for Defensive Player of the Year, as we basically do 3 distinct podcasts all wrapped up into one. Also built different is rockauto.com. Rock Auto is the place to go for everything you need for your car, truck, motorcycle, RV, anything that you're driving around in. It's got an engine. rockauto.com can probably help you out. You want to go somewhere else and spend 30 to 50 to 100% more on a part? You're free to do it. I'm telling you about rockauto.com because I want you to save some money. You go check them out, whatever thing you need. If it's complicated, if you know what's going on when you lift your hood, great. I don't. So I go to rockauto.com when I need a new floor mat, when I need windshield wipers, when I need motor oil, or to stock up on simple stuff like that. It just works for everybody. So go check them out. My Locked On NBA partner, Jake Madison, he's a car guy. He rebuilding classic cars and goes to Rock Auto all the time to get the parts that he needs. So go check them out. And it's expansive. It's an expansive catalog with price points that fit every budget. If you're looking to save some money, or if you're looking to make sure you get the best quality part, the highest, whatever it is, it's there. When you do go buy something at rockauto.com, they have a little box there that says, how did you hear about us? Make sure you're writing Locked On in there, because that's the only way they know we sent you. And I'd really like to make sure that they know that you came over there from the Locked On Celtics podcast. So write Locked On in that how did you hear about us box. It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, let's get into the Marcus Smart Defensive Player of the Year discussion. And I'm playing off a comment left on yesterday's podcast on the YouTube section there from Curtis Burdick, who left a lengthy comment, but the gist of it is summed up at the beginning. Curious to what your thoughts are on Marcus Smart becoming the new odds-on favorite for Defensive Player of the Year at the top sports books. And Smart is gaining more attention since Robert Williams went down. So let's dive into it, because Smart went on NBA Today. He's kind of on a little bit of a push. He keeps tweeting out there little things that, 1996 is the last time a guard won Defensive Player of the Year, and he's making his case. And damn it, Tom, if he isn't being effective in potentially swaying some of these voters, what do you think is behind Smart kind of ascending? Even in the show, they just casually dropped, hey, we're going to come up with Defensive Player of the Year front runner Marcus Smart. Like, they just casually say he's the front runner.
I think it's a couple things. I think, for one thing, Defensive Player of the Year is a lot of it is about narrative, right? Now, a lot of these awards, narrative plays a major role.
Sure.
The honest truth about defense is that, like, we pay a lot of attention, we all watch, but, like, it's hard to evaluate defense. Like, defense, I think, is where, like, you see, like, the really high level, like, X's and O's analysis, and just kind of, like, everybody, doing their best with it, right? Like, like, if, like, it's one of the things I think that really separates, but I mean, offense too, certainly, but, like, defense in particular separates, I think, coaches and, like, tacticians from people who just watch a ton of hoops. Like, if you know a lot about defense, you are on a different level. So, like, with Smart, like, he is, like, a very effective defender. There's, like, any of your advanced, any of the stats will show that. Again, I pointed this out on previous episodes, but Al Horford looks like the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year from the Celtics. If you look at the truly, like, the really advanced stuff, but
sure,
Smart does show up really well on the statistics and all of that. And he has done a really good job, to your point, of kind of bending the narrative in his direction by saying, hey, it's only ever been big men. Hey, guards can have an impact too. Like, that's one of the things that he's doing. And look, I think I've said this before. I think guards probably are underrated because stats can't measure everything to do with defense, and stats heavily favor the big men. But hey, there are a lot of defense is played before the ball ever gets to the rim. So, how do you quantify that? I actually think that what Smart is doing is really good in some ways for the game, because you do need to acknowledge that, hey, versatile wings matter quite a lot. Lockdown guards can matter quite a bit. Somebody like Marcus Smart matters a whole lot for defense. And, like, whether he wins Defensive Player of the Year or not, it is important to acknowledge those things, especially in the modern NBA, where, you see somebody like Rudy Gobert, undeniably a great defender, but who gets, his teams get lit up in the postseason because he can't switch and guard guards. Like, what do you do with that? Like, these are complicated conversations that matter when there's something on the line, like an award like this. So, look, I don't know what I make of it. Like, Ime Udoka could tell you a lot better than I do. I look at Smart, I watch him pretty carefully, and you can see him calling things out. You can see him kind of being a linchpin for the Celtics defense. And you hear all of his teammates talking about him in these glowing terms of, like, that guy's our Defensive Player of the Year. So, I think it's very reasonable, and I think it's kind of cool that he is kind of bending the narrative away from, like, it's got to be a big all the time. I don't know that it has to be.
No, and the thing is, so this is the thing with defense, is so much of it depends on your teammates as well. Like, you can have great defensive teammates, and that actually takes away from your case, or vice versa. It really is this is one of the most difficult awards to actually quantify. But here's, I think, the case for Marcus Smart when you talk about guards and all the stuff that you were saying about so much defense is being played before it gets to the big man. So Robert Williams has 134 blocked shots this year. Totals this season, opponents have taken 6,942 field goal attempts. Okay? They've missed 3,928 of them. Robert Williams has blocked 134 shots. So there are significantly many more shots out there that are impacted. Now, Rob has also impacted some of those shots, but there are a lot of shots out there to be defended. Teams have taken more than 6,000, almost 7,000 field goal attempts against the Celtics, and Rob has blocked 132. So the block shot is the most dramatic. And the best shot blockers block what? 3 a game? 4? And like most teams have 80, 90 plus field goal attempts. So the shot eraser in the back is the ultimate safety net. And Robert Williams is the ultimate safety net. And he's done a lot more than just block shots. I don't want to make it seem like I'm boiling it down to just that. But I'm just saying, like, for Marcus Smart to support his case, like all of those shot attempts, and that's just shot attempts. That's not counting just possessions and other things. So yeah, guards probably should get more. And every time we have this discussion, I bring up that one voter who said rebounds and block shots are the case, and voted Hassan Whiteside and Andre Drummond as defensive player 1-2 a couple years ago. So not every voter knows what the F he's talking about. So that I think Marcus Smart has built a really strong case for defensive player of the year. I think his teammates have done a great job kind of pushing him. I think the coordinated effort of everybody on the team saying, like, yeah, you have Robert Williams as your, as a candidate, and Al Horford has a stake in the numbers, and Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are certainly high-level defenders when they're all locked in. And when the Celtics made the case for all defense, they put all 5 guys up there on their little placards for the media to kind of like see and tweet out and all of that stuff. But Marcus Smart's the guy who coordinates the whole thing.
Right.
He's the guy. And so as I continue just talking nonstop, what are the factors that go into defensive player of the year? Well, the Celtics have the number 1 defense. Next is Golden State. There's nobody on that's a legitimate candidate because Draymond Green hasn't played enough. Next is Phoenix. Bridges has a case, but that's not what you think of when you think of the Phoenix Suns. You think of more Devin Booker and CP3 and all of that. But Bridges has a case. Miami, Bam has a case. Cleveland, too many injuries. Memphis, Jaren Jackson, but injuries as well. You go down the list, like Utah, Gobert can be like, hey, I have a case, but you're the 12th ranked defense. You can't have the defensive player of the year in a middle of the road defense. You want Embiid, 9th ranked defense. Like, these are like disqualifying factors here.
Especially, let me interject real quick. Since Rob Williams went out, the Celtics, last 5 games, because Rob hasn't been out for 5 games yet, but the last 5 games, the Celtics have a defensive rating of 107.4. That would still be the number 1 defense in the NBA if you spread that out for the entire season. That's even after Rob went out. It has gotten worse since Rob went out, but Smart has still kind of kept them right in that range that they need to be in. Yeah.
And so I think Marcus Smart has a real strong case. The fact that he's become the betting favorite, like you said before, once that narrative starts rolling, then it's hard. That one's hard to beat.
Yep.
Giannis has a case, but the Milwaukee Bucks defense is 14th. It's worse than Utah's. So that element favors Boston. How can you have the number 1 defense in the NBA and have a guy that everybody considers their best defensive, everybody on the team considers him their best defensive player? Like, how are you going to reward somebody way further down? Like the conversation should be between Smart and Bridges and Bam if we're going to look at just who's got the best defenses, the best defensive player, and the best.
I'm willing to listen to that trio. I think that might be it. Like those
that might be it, right?
Like might be my ballot if I had a ballot, which I do not.
Like Smart and Bridges, like this should go between Smart and Bridges. Like those two dudes are
and Bam, yeah,
maniacal, and Bam, like then that's just crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like Smart's chances. I really do like Smart's chances.
I do too. I think, one of the things that you have to kind of remember too is that like the awards are public, and like, I mean, there's some people have more of an appetite for this than others, but like when we talk about narrative, one of the things you have to remember is like, if you vote against the narrative, you're risking getting yelled at. And like,
yeah,
like, I joked that like, I mean, like that's, that's,
it's like the GM taking the consensus number one pick when there's somebody else that you want to take. It's just it's I get it. I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So I mean, and like, look again, like you go through like deflections per game. Marcus Smart is in the top 10. Loose balls recovered. Marcus Smart is in the top 10. Like there are much easier stats to quantify Smart's impact than just, your, impact, like these like deeply, these deep number dives into like impact and stuff like that. It's a lot easier than that too. It can be like, there is an eye test case for him. There's a simpler kind of number test, for him that works. And there's a narrative that works for him. I think those three things very well could get him over the finish line here.
All right. Well, I think it's a very strong case. I would love to see him win it, not just because it's the Celtics and all that, but he's probably deserved it a lot.
Yeah.
And, Marcus Smart's not going to be an all-star. He's not going to make all NBA. He's made some all defense teams, and he'll make more. Yeah. And this is where he hangs his hat. But like to have a major award like that, like good for him. Like I think him breaking through and being the guard that wins it since Gary Payton, I think is almost in a way a lifetime achievement award for him, because he's been doing this for a long, long time and has deserved much more recognition, even though you can say like a lot of these other Defensive Player of the Year award winners have certainly deserved it, but Smart has deserved a lot more recognition than he's getting. So if he gets it this time, I think it'd be awesome.
It's not easy to come into the league. He's like the number 6 pick in the draft, right? Like he's like a high lottery pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And like since he came into the league, he has hung his hat on defense, hung his hat on just being like a tough, hard-nosed dude out there. And like he's gotten a lot better at offense, right? Like we talked about it a million times. His passing his shooting. I know people like still yell about it, but his shooting has come a long way since he was a rookie, since he was a second-year player. He's a lot better now. But he has always been like a defense first guy. That's always been where he's kind of come from. And like, yeah, I mean that like not that this should be the reason that he wins Defensive Player of the Year, but it is one of the reasons that it would be really cool to see him do it, because it's something that he has dedicated his entire career toward, and he's really built up a kind of a legacy for himself as a defender. So adding this to the legacy would be cool. Again, well deserved. When there is a guard who you talk about their defense primarily, you just kind of like that's not usually what you talk about a guard for. So that, and you do with Gary Payton and you do with Marcus Smart. So it does feel, somewhat appropriate in that way.
We'll see. Hopefully it works out for him. Thank you once again, Tom Westerholm, Tom_NBA. Go follow him on the tweets. Thanks, Tom.
If anybody stuck around this long, I want to point out that I said Paolo Banchero, and I immediately got mad at myself. It's Paolo Banchero, and I know that. I just haven't podcasted about him at all this year, so don't yell at me. Thanks, guys.
You corrected yourself. You did it. It's fine. All right. We'll let Tom go on that. Tom just wants the place to talk about the draft. He doesn't talk about the draft anymore. Tom knows a lot about the draft, more than anybody probably should. Thank you for, if you've been around for this entire podcast, really do appreciate that. Hopefully that means you're going to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Like I said before, Locked On Celtics is free, available wherever you get your podcasts. You make it your first listen every day. Download it, take it in the car with you. drive to work. It's great for your morning commute. This one's probably a little bit longer. Maybe if you get stuck in a little extra traffic, this will carry you through. Watch the show on YouTube. Really would love doing that. Love you doing that. That'd be great. And share the podcast. Tell your friends. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.